And most importantly, they're hungry for success.
The world is yet to see the potential. Imagine, the second most populated continent in the world, full of potential and creativity, with no access to effective education. Imagine you were born in a world of impossibilities, with a great passion, and no one there to guide you. How would you prosper in this world? Africa to Silicon Valley. A2SV is building a digital bridge between Africa and the developed world. We are an academy that focuses on algorithms, data structures, problem solving, communication skills, and personal development.
In Turkey, I attended my first programming class when I was 13. By the end of high school, I gained enough knowledge to be hired by top tech companies. After college, I worked for Palantir and Google, delivering scalable products used around the world. Quality education positioned me for success, and I strongly believe it is our mission to give this knowledge back any way we can. We started with Ethiopia because we can make the largest impact in underdeveloped areas. Students collaborate with industry experts and receive the education they deserve. Most importantly, we provide the opportunity to impact their own communities.
After you graduate from college, you realize there's a massive gap between what you learned and how products are delivered in the real world. We think it's important to start very early with the students and have them build real products that their communities are actually using. Within just 3 months of a boot camp, we've been able to see these students grow, and we've been able to successfully place them with Silicon Valley companies. They're smart, they're hardworking, they're driven, and most importantly, they're hungry for success.
The world is yet to see the potential of the young generation in Africa.
A2SV has helped me grow in ways I didn't expect. The experiences and friendships I've made make me feel like we're a big family. I've always wanted to work with talented professionals on influential projects. And now here we are, working on a COVID-19 symptom tracking system for Ethiopia with experts from Silicon Valley.
Our goal is to optimize the circumstances for humankind to shine the real potential of the world.
I've always wanted to make noticeable changes and solve real problems in my country. I want to pass on what I've learned to the future generations, and I'm excited to build towards the future of Ethiopia and Africa.
Engineering is problem solving, and we understand great products require more than a block of code. That's why we want our students to experience real-world problems while delivering actual solutions to consumers. By matching these methods with talented students, 27% of our group passed Google internship interviews. Compared to Google's average acceptance rate, these students prove that talent is everywhere.
But the opportunity is not. That's why we're building a digital bridge between hidden talent and opportunity. What we've done so far is just the beginning. See the potential. Join the dream. Africa to Silicon Valley.
Yes, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We're ready.
Okay. All right. I will invite our guests first. Once they appear, then we can take the other panels and get started.
Welcome back to another Recall by Data IQ video.
Did you share the link in the community, or are we also waiting for Biruk and Elsh to join?
Imagine, the second most populated continent in the world, full of potential and creativity, with no access to effective education. You were born in a world of impossibilities, with a great passion, and no one there to guide you. How would you prosper in this world? Africa to Silicon Valley. A2SV is building a digital bridge between Africa and the developed world. We are an academy.
And Tim, you can go to Google Calendar, calendar.google.com. Still, 95% of our teammates do not make use of this utility because we don't accept the invites on Calendar. I don't know what's the motivation, but that's the behavior at the moment. You can see what's coming on your way and be aware of these events before my warning. All right, team. So before we get started, I would like to give a bit of information regarding how we are going to use the session. So normally in our Q&As, we have guests outside of our organization, and we bring inspirational people from technology and art and sports, mainly technology though, since our network is mostly there. And today, this Q&A is an exception because today we are going to we are going to have two guests from A2SV, two inspirational people, Biruk Solomon and Elshadai. So Biruk is a valuable member of A2SV community as well as team, and he has completed summer internship at Google Munich. And Elshadai has completed Audible, which is an Amazon organization, internship this year, and she received a full-time offer as well. And instead of having our classic questions, this time we are going to get the questions from our teammates. This process has already been done, and we have over 20 questions, I believe. So Dagib, I am going to leave the stage to you. And I would ask everybody to pay attention because the questions that we are going to cover are mostly relevant about their experience and how they get there. And since we all have ambitious objectives on the interview preparation agenda, it would be great to get the best out of this session. Thank you. And Dagib, we are with you.
Okay, guys. So this was really unexpected. So is Elshadai and Biruk available now?
Biruk is available, so we can start with Biruk, and Elsh is about to join. Dagim, are you talking? I'm not sure if I have a connection problem or you. Can you guys hear Dagim? You don't?
No,
Okay.
I'm listening. Okay, how are you guys doing? Hi guys, can you hear me properly?
Yes, yes.
All right, so how are you doing, Biruk? How are you doing, Elshadai? How's everything?
Everything's all right.
Okay, that is good to know. So without further ado, let's get right to the Q&A. All right, so the first question is actually started by a debate, but I'm going to skip that for now and get to the simpler questions for now. So the first question comes from Kenna, and he says, how did the process between you and the recruiter go? This first question goes to Biruk, and if you are if you're willing to answer that, please give us an answer, Biruk. If you need me to say the question again, I can say it.
Biruk's connection
sorry,
is
I was
not
muted.
reliable. Okay, Biruk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you, Biruk.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was muted. People just told me. So I think from what I understood, it sounds like how we got to the offer in the first place, not after. So my interaction with the recruiter before the job offer.
Okay, you can start with however you want.
Okay, no, that makes sense. So for me, my recruiter was Tamara, and we first, after the contact from A2SV and the initial interviews, we had set up the interviews for later, I think later in January, way back. And by that time, I'd heard back from LinkedIn positive feedback. So afterwards, I've told my recruiter at Google that I've already accepted an offer from LinkedIn. And most likely, if it's an offer of visa issues, that I'll be declining like the offer from Google. But just because of visa issues, I'd like to continue with the process. They're very supportive. They're very positive, and they let me know that it's okay. Even if I wanted, they could move the interview dates closer if that helps with the decision making. It did, and so they moved the interview dates way closer to, I think, in a week. When we had the interviews, I had quick feedback from them, and then afterwards they were able to adjust the start dates for my internship so that it's convenient. It was originally supposed to be after LinkedIn, so LinkedIn in the summer, and then Google afterwards. And I think there was an issue with LinkedIn, so we had to move the Google internship first. And there again, my recruiter was super supportive throughout the process. She was like, okay, no problem, we can move the start date here and then end date here. And then I think by the end we had shared around 6 offer letters back and forth, changing the dates and small details.
Can you maybe turn off your camera?
Okay, is the quality any better now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. The internet is spotty. I think as soon as I got to the room, the quality dropped for a bit. So yeah, so far the experience has been very positive, and they're really supportive. And I think it was way more than I expected in terms of how much they were receiving feedback, and very, very flexible. I think I was very happy with my recruiter, if that answers the question.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Biruk. And this next question is for Elshadai. And the question came from Imri, and he would like you to explain how difficult the interview questions were when you took some of the questions when you were being interviewed. How difficult were the questions, and how comfortable were you when you were trying to answer and maybe try to come up with a solution for the questions?
Okay, so as for me, my first interview was with LinkedIn. It was on December. That went pretty smoothly, and I was actually expecting an offer, but they didn't do that. So for the LinkedIn interview, the questions were really easy, like Liquid Easy and Liquid Medium, and it was really simple. And then after that, I had the Audible and Google interviews, and for that, for Audible, there were, it was one question, and then it was lead code medium kind of question, but then there was a follow-up to make it a bit hard, so that was it. For Google, my interview, it had two questions. One was lead code hard, and one was lead code easy, and I missed the easy one. So that was my interview process. Like, is there anything specific that I have to explain about?
No, further questions will be directed your way. Thank you for the answer. So a third question goes for Biruk, and some member of A2SV would like to know how they can get good at solving questions and being good problem solvers. How did you tackle this issue?
Okay, I don't think I have a clear-cut answer for that. I can share my personal experience with it if it's helpful. So for me personally, I was genuinely interested in problem solving, not just for interviews, as a hobby. I think after joining A2SV. So just as for fun mostly, not for fun, but as a subject matter, I was quite interested in it. And I think the few things that helped were, for every problem that I do, I don't do many problems, honestly, but for the few problems that I do, I try to go out of my way and check, like, did I learn something new from this problem? If I haven't, I'll try to see the discuss pages or the solution page. Like, there's probably something I've missed, something I could have done better. Or even if I'm stuck on a question for a long time, and then I go to the discuss page and see the solution, I try to think, what small difference could I have made in my thought process so that I could have arrived at the same solution or a similar solution that they had. That's a few things that I found useful. And even on days that I feel like, I have not learned anything, I try to go out of my way and look for maybe new topics I can explore, new types of questions. I've not done it too frequently, but the few times I've done it, I've found it quite useful to make sure that at least I'm learning one new thing every day or improving in one aspect every day. Yeah, I'd say that's one tip I can give.
All right, thank you, Biruk. So this next question is going to be for both of you. What kind of resources besides LeetCode and Codeforce would you recommend some of the A2SV members and community members to work on, apart from the two I mentioned? What kind of resources do you have in mind?
Should I go ahead?
Yes, Ash.
Yeah, so as for me, I would say Piram, and mostly I focused on LeetCode, and I think that's really, really, really helpful. There was a premium account for which we used like to filter the questions based on the companies. So like after I sit interviews with the companies, I used to, for example, for let's say LinkedIn, after I sit the interview, I'd go on LeetCode and look for interview questions from LinkedIn, like asked by that company. So yeah, I focused on that. And most importantly, I think what helped me the most is when I work on questions, especially at home, I explain to them like as if there's another person in the room, as if there's an interviewer. So I explain my thought process, like how I would solve this. Even if it's a way that wouldn't work, I'll just say it out loud and say, oh no, this wouldn't work. So I'll try this another approach. So I think that helped a lot by like making me a good communicator on my thought process. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Ash. Is there something you might want to add, Biruk?
Not a lot. I think Ash covered some pretty good spots. For resources, I think between LeetCode's discuss page, solution page, questions, and Codeforce's, like also they have their own article sections. I think between those are good. They provide a good coverage. I also like Geeks for some questions and top coder articles sometimes. But I think the resources themselves are pretty sufficient. I think mock interviews we can use the people here at A2SV as a resource, and taking mock interviews and pair programming sessions whenever possible. I think I've learned quite a few things from that myself. That's the only thing I think I'd add.
All right, thank you guys. Okay, so this next question is not actually a question, it's going to be a debate between you guys. And which company do you think had more benefits between Audible and Google? So I'm going to start with you, Ilsh. Do you think, which part do you think, which company do you think is more beneficial? And since this question actually depends on location and everything, so maybe you guys could argue, and whoever asked this question could feel the satisfaction of you guys arguing.
Okay. I don't think we need to debate about this because they're pretty much different. Audible, it's a company under Amazon, so it had its own benefits plus Amazon benefits. For example, we used to get discounts from Whole Foods, Amazon.com, and those owned by Amazon things. But I think Google has its own benefits too. And that shows every company would have its own values, like these big tech companies. But as for like salary-wise, I think Audible's was a bit higher. It was about 57.99 per hour. 48 per hour. Like if you work over 40 hours a week. So it was a pretty good deal. Plus housing was provided. The housing, it also had a house cleaner and everything. So it was pretty much a kind of fancy life, I can say. But I also applied to Google hoping that I would get in for the full semester because Google has its own benefits too and wanted to see that too. But yeah.
Biruk, is that
I don't think we need to
might add in
debate
your
about
defense?
this.
I don't think we can top the free housing and the salary, especially in Europe. I think it's different, the salary ranges they provide. But, oh, wait, is it audible? Someone? Okay, great. I just wanted to check. But I think in terms of benefits, Google's biggest would be its size and its different location. I think transferring between teams, whenever, if you feel like you want a different experience, you don't have to reapply. Transferring between teams is super easy, super convenient. Same with location. If you decide to, I think I had a coworker who decided to vacation in Europe from the US, and they just transferred to our office, and they're vacationing from there, basically, through Europe. I think in terms of benefits, there are most of the Google products that are internal, and most of the Google products, you can be a tester essentially, and then use them for free. For, I think Stadia was one of them. For most of the platforms that require testing, maybe Pixel is also another. You can just jump in as a tester and then get the latest for free, which is fun. I think in terms of benefits, it has the standard things that you'd expect from any tech company, like free meals, massages, games, game rooms, ping pong, snacks. Yeah, I'd say the usual benefits. I think most, if it shines out in any respect, I'd say it's the people. Especially in Europe, since everyone's from everywhere, you do get a lot of insights from a lot of people. So I think people can take each benefit with a grain of salt and then see if they like it.
Thank you very much, Biruk. So this next question is going to be, tell us about some of the projects you did there. This question is for both of you. Maybe Elsh could go first. What are some of the projects you did there? And maybe if you could explain about those in further detail, it would be really appreciated. Go ahead, Elsh.
Okay, that would be violating my non-disclosure agreement. But I would say, okay, just a general overview. I worked on 3 projects during my internship period. So the first project was related to payments. So it took a bit longer time. They had to review it. I got 14 reviews. Like I had to adjust my code 14 times to get it approved and have it merged and ship it to prod. So it was a pretty critical area I was working on. And then the other two projects were like mini projects. They were just expecting for me to do one project. So me doing 3 projects kind of made them interested in me more. So it was a good thing too. Yeah. But I don't think I can talk about the details of the projects.
We totally understand that. It's okay. Maybe Biruk could go on further details about it. Maybe Biruk, is there anything you might say?
Yeah, sure. I think mine would also fall under the same conditions, unfortunately, but I worked on an internal tool. So if anyone gets to Google, they can ping me and I'll let them know where to go to look at my feature. It was front end and back end, and it was, I'd say, relatively speaking, was simple, straightforward, clear cut, but also it being Google. And I think there are a lot of processes. I think 14 reviews is a low bar. I think we've had, it's a lot more by the end for me, but I think it balances out since they have also a big emphasis on work-life balance. I think that one project did end up taking the full 3 months, and we had to coordinate between different teams because different parts of the project lived with different teams, and then we had to coordinate how it would look like on each of their code base, which is a fun experience. I think coordinating with people was nice, but the short summary of it was it's an internal feature for one of the internal tools, one of the many internal tools Google had. And I think that might be all I can say about it. I'm not sure.
That's more than sufficient, Biruk. Thank you. Okay, so next up, this is going to be a little bit personal. Were there any hardships that you guys faced or went through when you were abroad? This could be translated in different kind of aspects. It could be maybe the weather was not fortunate for you guys, or it could be some racial incident you guys faced. Was there any encounters that you might consider that was hard, you know?
Okay, as for me, US was pretty warm. Like they're having their summertime and it's very hot. Like you do not wish to go out of your house. But my area, like my office and my apartment were on the same level. It was fun for me because I'd just like go to the office and just come back. But the weather, yeah, it wasn't the ideal weather, but it was fun to see that side of the US, because if I plan to go full time to that company, which I do, I have to see like each and every weather I'll be facing maybe. So it was a good experience in my opinion, even though it was pretty harsh. The other thing, maybe not related to the internship directly, I was doing double internship. I was also doing an internship at MIT. It was a research internship and I had to manage my time and it was very difficult at some point. But yeah, that was one of the hardships during the summer.
Okay, thank you, Elsh. Biruk, is there anything you might want to say about the question? Were there any kind of hardships you faced? Any kind of unfortunate scenarios that you might consider was happened to you, stuff like this? Is there anything you can mention?
Yeah, I think for most cases, especially the city, the country, it was extremely ideal. But I think I'd take the question as saying any challenges I faced personally from the work. I think one thing I had to learn, and pretty early on too, was learning to say like I need this to be productive. I think that phrase, that question, that statement, and also like this is I'm doing an intern project and its timeline is really limited. Can you prioritize my task? I think being proactive, advocating for your project and saying like like being active in that sense. It's something I had to learn, and people were super responsive once you do that. People are really eager to help, but you have to go out of your way and say, okay, I really need this to be productive. And that goes all the way from like if you're talking to your coworkers or people point of contacts in other teams and you're trying to get your work done on time, even all the way to using the massage room or even using a nap room. Like if you feel like it would be nice if I had a 30 minutes nap and then I can be productive, like there's no stigma behind it. You just go, you have your rest and you come back. It's much better than just being tired all day. And that ties into some of like the philosophy they have where it's okay to take those breaks if you need them. And I think for my team especially, that was especially the case. Like if you need to go somewhere, it's fine. Just as long as in the end you're productive, people don't mind. And that was, I think, a very relieving experience. And that's for me. Yeah.
That's really good to hear, Brooke. I think Elsh, we lost Elsh. Elsh, are you back or what's going on? I couldn't see her. All right, I think she's back. Okay, so this question. Go ahead, Elsh. Were you saying something? All right. Okay, so this question goes to both of you. What does it take to convince a recruiter to give you a chance at an interview? Is there anything we need to do in order to convince the recruiter, apart from being good at coding and stuff like that? Is there any additional effort that we need to put in order to have him give us a second chance or any kind of chance for that matter? Is there anything you might want to say about that, Biruk?
Sure, I can jump in. It depends from company to company. I think there are some companies where the recruiter has a very strong say on whether you're allowed to continue to interviews and whatnot. But for Google, for example, I don't think the recruiters play a very critical role in deciding. I think there are committees organized for that case. But I think being responsive to your recruiter, since the recruiter being responsive to you, responding on time makes a world of a difference. Because there are some A2SVNs here that had good experiences with recruiters and people who've had bad ones. I think makes a huge difference. And for that, I think being super responsive whenever they're asking questions, trying to be flexible when making decisions, and taking some of the like tips or tricks they're providing, because they do usually like before interviews and whatnot. It's super helpful. I don't think it increases your chance, at least in my experience from Google, to getting an interview or a full-time offer, like, or an offer afterwards. But I'd definitely say like having that good communication channel between your recruiter is definitely helpful. I think even after getting the interview, getting the offer, keeping tabs with your recruiter is super critical, in my opinion.
That's really good to hear, Brooke. Is there anything you might want to add to that, Ish?
Maybe just one little thing. For Audible, I applied like direct without A2SV. Like I applied directly to the company, and I had to contact the recruiter through via LinkedIn. And I think if you're considering maybe applying to companies outside A2SV's like network, maybe when you send them a message on LinkedIn or something, make it short, make it interesting, and yeah, just don't make it like look like you're begging maybe, but make sure that they know you have a potential and they want to make them want to have a call with you maybe. Yeah.
So what you're basically saying is, in case things go sideways and if they're not going in the right way that you're expecting them to, instead of begging and asking them to at least hire you as the person who runs errands, stuff like that, maybe you should try to embrace what happens and maybe try next time. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't think begging someone like to give you a chance would work out. Like It could be like they may not be replying because maybe the position is full, or they get like lots of messages and everything. So don't take it personally. Just apply and reach out to them. And if you're doing that, make sure you reached out to many recruiters as you can. But I think focusing more on the interview, like interview preparation and everything, is more crucial at this point, because there are plenty of companies which you can get in through A2SV. So that's your best bet, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question for you. So before I get to some other questions that's sent for the both of you, maybe I should send this one for you as well. So some member asked that you got so many opportunities and so many chances. I think they've been stalking your LinkedIn account the same way as I was, maybe. But the question is, you got so many opportunities and stuff like that, and maybe can you explain how? How did this happen? You were about to intern at Amazon Germany now, and like you just mentioned, you were an intern at Audible, and you obviously secured a full-time job, which I would like to congratulate you. And so, how did you manage to do all this? That's the question.
Okay, maybe I think I've got used to rejections. Amazon rejected me 20 times before accepting me last time.
Wait, I'm going to
So
stop you right
I
there.
don't care when
Say
they reject me. I
25
just apply again.
crazy.
No, I am not. My connection is pretty poor, but I would have shared my screen and show you. But
It's okay. I thought
yeah, they rejected me 20 times.
Okay, continue.
Yeah. So whenever a rejection email comes in, I just don't care. I apply 2 times. Like whenever a rejection for one position comes in, I apply for 2 another positions. So that's the way how it's been going so far.
Be consistent.
And that's for Amazon. I think for the other opportunities, yeah. Like if you're interested in research internship, any other programs, just apply. I mean, there's only one way to find out. And if you want something, you'll only be looking for just one acceptance, right? I mean, you don't need 20 or 30 acceptance. You could get like hundreds of rejections, and one acceptance could change almost everything. I think my acceptance from Audible almost changed everything, because whenever companies see that you've been accepted to one place, their interest in you grows, kind of. So I think that helps too.
All right. Okay, so Biruk, people have already noticed that you have done a lot of questions on lead code and code forces and stuff like that. So here's a question for you from one of our members. He said, quantity or quality in problem solving, what do you think matters more? So if a person is doing a lot of questions, do you think he will be getting more and more information and more knowledge as the number of questions he does grow, or do you think he needs to focus on a single question and maybe work on the quality and how he can optimize that solution perfectly and stuff like that? Maybe you understand my question. Can you give me an answer to that?
Sure. I think personally, I'd definitely recommend quality over quantity. Quality in a sense of, do you understand why that question is answered, why that train of thought works for that question, or why this algorithm is the best for this, or is this the most optimal, or can we make it better? I think if you've done that, and it's okay to move to another question, you don't have to like sit there and polish it for hours, but making sure that you understand the essence of the question. If the question was slightly changed, like if some part of the question was changed, you feel like you have a good idea. You're not just memorizing the question and answer. If you feel like you have a good grasp of the concept, it's okay to move on to another one. If you feel like you have a good grasp on what the question is asking and how to approach questions that are similar in the future, you can always, go to the next one. But I think until you feel like you have a good grasp on what kind of question it is and why that kind of solution works for it. I think spending time on it is a good investment from my experience in the past. If it's discuss pages, if it's pair programming with someone else, if it's just taking time out and just trying to understand it on your own on the whiteboard, whatever you do, taking time out and making sure you understand every question, I think that trumps quantity anytime in my mind.
Okay, that's actually a very nice answer, but here's a follow-up question for you. It's from Donnie. He's asking, can you tell us maybe your journey in solving problems, how you did it, and stuff like that, like from starting from the easy ones to the hard ones, how was your journey when it comes to solving these questions?
I'd say from the easy ones to the hard ones, the transition in my mind wouldn't be one that it's just harder or it's just way more things. But for me, maybe for an easy question, the solution might be obvious. And maybe for a medium question, you'd have to think of some kind of trick or the right data structure and then makes it work. And then for a hard question, maybe you need two of those tricks that you need to come up with, or maybe you have to mix this data structure with another or modify this algorithm in one way or the other. I'd say they're kind of on the same tree. It's not a whole different skill to apply. So I think getting good, like at whatever level you currently feel comfortable in, if you feel comfortable in solving like medium questions for DP, getting good at like solving those questions and then moving up to hard, it makes sense. If when those questions feel less and less challenging, it makes sense to like level it up if that makes sense. But for me, I'd say the journey involves usually trying it out, failing a couple of hours, and then trying to see how it could be done better, and then trying to apply the similar logic to a few other questions until I feel comfortable, and then maybe ramping it up or seeing something completely different. And that learning process of encountering something new and using your previous knowledge to tackle it somehow with some creative twist, it's an enjoyable process, and I think I learned the most by doing that. Does that answer your question, Danny, or were you asking something different?
If another question or a follow-up question comes along, I will make sure to send them your way. Okay, so another question for you is, tell us a funny experience or a surprising moment you've encountered during your internships. This question goes for the both of you. What are some of the things you would like to keep as a memory? What are some of the fun things that happened while you were there? So maybe if you could share this with us, it'd be really good.
I guess I can start this one. I think a big part of the internship experience is the other interns and the coworkers. And for me personally, most of the memories I'll take were those shared with other interns. I think from trips to lakes, the Alps, and castle visits. I think we also went to an Ethiopian restaurant, around 20 of us. And it was expensed by Google. It was fun. I organized it and took the rest of the interns over. And we got to try the Ethiopian food. They had interesting ways of eating it. The way we're used to was foreign to them. So some people are trying to make it a wrap. Some people are trying to make it a taco. It was fun to watch. I had a lot of fun. Most of them tried Dutch. People liked it. That was nice to see. We also went to trips to, I think, beautiful lakes and hikes all over. And then we went to each other's apartment and had fun. And most of my memories that I'll cherish would be from that internship experience of people from entirely different cultures. Many of them were from completely different countries, and just coming together by virtue of being fellow interns and then enjoying each other's company and learning from one another. It was a lot of memories and too many photos, I think, for me personally.
Thank you, Biruk. Anything you might want to add, Ish?
Yeah, mostly what Brooke said also applies to me because during the internship, there were interns from all over the world. I had a roommate and she was from China, for example. So she taught me how to use chopstick and it was a fun experience. And then I had so many Indian friends. Almost more than half of the interns were from India. And I got to learn most of their culture too. It was a pretty fun experience. And then one thing, like one memory I really cherish is I got to learn, like even though it was for just one day, I got to learn how to fly a plane. We rented a private plane and hi. Sorry, I think I lost connection. Uh, yeah, so one of like the fun experiences, sorry, one of the fun experiences I was mentioning was we learned, me and my roommate, we went to learn how to fly a plane. We rented a private plane and went through on a tour in New York City, and the skyscrapers and everything was so beautiful. It was at night, so that was a memory I'll cherish for sure. And like Brooke said, too many pictures.
I'm sure maybe you forgot to mention, but in one of your videos or pictures, I think on Instagram, I saw you holding a
Yeah,
gun.
that's it for
Maybe.
me. So
Yeah. I think I would consider that a fun
yeah, me
experience.
holding a gun, it was before the internship. I didn't do anything violent during my internship. I tried not to.
Did you
Yeah,
shoot the gun at least?
I tried.
Did you hit anything? Maybe a bird?
Uh, a bird was not the aim. I had an aim and I shot right beside it. So I can say I'm a good shooter too.
All right,
Yeah.
that's really good to hear. So another question for you guys is, can you tell us where you see yourself 5 years from now? What's the biggest achievement you think you will have after 5 years? Where do you think you will be? What kind of position you think you would acquire after 5 years? That's a question from one of our members, and uh, you can maybe give us an answer for that.
5 years is a pretty long time. I'm not quite sure how, like, where I would see myself in 5 years, but it's definitely somewhere at the top.
Somewhere at the top. Okay, it's a bit ambiguous, but we will take it. All right, Biruk, is there anything you might want to say to that question?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you, Biruk.
Okay, great. Internet is a bit laggy. I think I'm not going to pretend like I know where I'm going to be in 5 years, but right now, just off the top of my head, I would like to be in a research position in the industry. Something low level seems to be interesting me at the moment. Yeah, somewhere where I can innovate and be proud of the work I do. I think that's somewhere I see myself, and somewhere in the industry in a research role, preferably.
All right. Thank you, Biruk. Here's another question for you. Would you say having an experience with big projects prior to having interviews is necessary? Especially for those of us who are coming from other fields of engineering, is the question. So, do you think working on bigger projects before applying for these internship positions is going to be beneficial for us? What do you say? What do you have to say about this?
Beneficial, definitely. I'm not sure about necessary. I think having some experience, be it in projects, be it in work experience, I think that's crucial. But having your own projects and working on them, especially if you're passionate about it, it definitely gives you a leg up. It helps. think it was in my interview with my manager at LinkedIn, there was a project I was passionate about. There was a course that I did, Nam to Tetris. I recommended a lot. And then afterwards, I wanted to improve on the end project. And I worked on it for a few weeks. And I was super passionate about it when talking with my manager. And I think that translated. It was related to the work that I was supposed to do. I think that really helps. It gives you something to talk about. It demonstrates your skills and values in a real world setting. So if you feel passionate about the project and you feel like you want to start, definitely I'd give you like the motivation. Yes, that definitely helps. But also you shouldn't be super worried if you haven't had any big personal projects so far. You can try to showcase your skills in other ways as like work experience or any real life, even the school projects you've done. If you polish them, I think that would be also something that you can put up and show.
All right. Thank you so much, Biruk. So here's a question for Elshadai. It came from one of our community members. He's asking, how do you think we can identify the locations while applying to these tech firms, especially the ones located in the US? Will they post specific application for international students or apply for us to apply, or can anyone apply from anywhere, or do we need the privilege of being in A2SV in order to do these? What do you have to say about this?
Being an A2SV definitely gives you kind of a referral. So that's a good thing. I mean, you don't need to reach out to recruiters, send them bunch of texts or emails, or you don't need to do all that. You'll just have to focus on just the interview and the tech part of it. So being part of A2SV definitely helps. But if you're not, I'd say most of the companies sponsor visas. For example, Amazon, Google, those FANG companies especially, and Microsoft, I know they do. They sponsor visas. So every application that's out, you'll just have to apply for it. I don't think they put something like this is for international students. No.
I see. Hopefully, maybe he got an answer for his question. So moving on, another question from one of our community members watching from YouTube. He's asking that he's just starting to learn programming language, programming in general, and it looks frustrating at the beginning, and he's asking how he should go about it. How can does it get any easier? That's the question you would like to ask, I believe. So, Biruk or Elsh, is there anything you guys want to tell this guy?
I think Biruk would be the perfect fit for this question, as he is a self-taught programmer at first. He was, so.
I completely agree. Biruk, what do you have to say about this? The guy is starting to learn programming, and he's frustrated, and I think he's starting to give up. So what do you have to tell him?
From my personal experience, I think getting into it is the hardest bit, because you really can't be productive and make like cool applications when you're at that phase, and there's a lot of things to learn and everything all at once. And I definitely see the frustration. It definitely comes up. I think I took a break for about half a year and before I got back into it again. And for me, I think it was definitely seeing some small things that I can do. Maybe I can write a small command line application that takes two numbers and does something with them. I don't remember. Or like something that plays tic-tac-toe on the command line. Just seeing something that you built from the ground up. And it might be simple, might be small. For me personally, it was motivation. And definitely does get easier. Maybe by easier, I mean more interesting. You can do more things and learning becomes less of a hassle and more of a discovery. Because I think the peak frustration for me, at least, it was around when I started. Like there's some very simple things you can do that anyone can do. And then just a step up over it, like how to actually do stuff. I was stuck for a while. It was not a great experience. It wasn't super enjoyable, but I think I'm happy that I got over it eventually, and I'd say that it's an enjoyable journey. If they commit to it for some time.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brooke. So here's another question for you, Elshadai, because since you managed to secure a full-time job, it's a question that was asked on our YouTube live chat. So he asked, how much will not having a Silicon Valley internship experience affect my chances of getting a full-time job? I would like to believe that the guy is maybe graduated. So he didn't get a chance to intern at any kind of Silicon Valley companies. So will it affect his chances of getting hired as a full-time engineer? And also, how will he be noticed? I'm sure you've said a few things earlier about trying to reach out to recruiters and being quick in general when it comes to stuff like this. But how do you think, is there any other tricks that he needs to apply in order to have these things sorted out? What do you say, Insh?
Okay, I'd say giving internship gives you a boost. Like, it's a good thing. It's a plus. If you had internship experience in those companies, it's a good thing. But if you do not do, I don't think like it affect. Like having an internship is a plus, but not having is not like a minus. Kind of, it's just a normal. So you'll just have to apply, but it will be more competitive, and maybe the questions will be like, when you apply for full-time, the interviews are much harder than internship interviews. So you'll just have to prepare. And we know like many A2SVians who secured full-time without having an internship experience. So that's a proof. That's a proof to me that even that is possible. If you practice enough to have those skills, to be confident in your problem solving skills, and if you apply to many companies as you can and reach out to many recruiters as you can, if you're not part of A2SV, then that's, I think, the best way to get hold of recruiters. You still like stand a chance. I mean, these companies hire anyway, so just don't give up, do it consistently, and whenever you get rejected or when a recruiter sees your text and do not reply, don't take it personally, because they do that all the time. They're pretty busy too, so just do it as often as you can.
Thank you, Ish. That was very inspirational. So another question from one of our A2SV Group 3 members is, if you're allowed to change one thing in Ethiopia, what would you change? That's a question for Biruk. So Ethiopia has so many holes that needs to be filled. So maybe one thing you've been noticing that could prove to be very difficult for people who live here. What do you think it would be? Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think there's obviously so many things, but the first thing that comes to mind when as soon as I heard the question, it was a bit of a frustration from me too. It was the public transport, at least as a first step, some kind of subscription service. So you pay a certain amount, and then you can travel within Addis Ababa with that ticket for the month. That kind of service, I think, for some reason, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I don't know why. But I think I'd implement that if I was in charge of anything, a subscription service where people can use buses for free for a month based on one ticket.
Thank you so much, Brooke. So here's another question. What would you say are the things you gained from working in these big companies? It's a question from Yarik. He's a Group 3 member. That's a question for both of you. What do you think you gained from this in general?
Let me start this one. I'd say network, like the connection I've made, because I've met so many like incredibly genius people. Like, I once was thinking of myself, like, how did I even get in here? Because they were from like all over the world, and they were like very smart and everything. So like, even like personality wise, I met like so many incredible people. So I'd say connections is the best thing I've earned, and also a full time. a full-time offer. That's a good thing I've got from this internship too. And I learned a whole framework, a whole like system I didn't know that existed. Like the main framework I worked on was Java's framework Spring. I learned that one, but like Amazon wise, like their whole system was using alias and everything. So I learned that whole thing, and it was a new skill, a new tech skill that I wouldn't get to learn if I tried that on my own. Maybe I'd learn a little, but having to do that like as my internship project was a really fun experience. So I learned a lot through that. And also I was located in Newark, New Jersey. So I've got to see like the eastern side of the US, which was pretty fun. It's very diverse and it's a very beautiful side of the country. The weather was a bit harsh, but it's very beautiful too. So I've got to see that.
Yeah, right. Biruk, do you wanna say a few things about this question? Next question from Yarid again.
Yes. I think definitely same with Elsh. It's been a highlight, the people that I've worked with, and they're from all over the place. And people have tried connecting with people is quite easy. They're really friendly. Everyone is easy to reach out to. I think within Munich, I've seen every team that has an open headcount, and I've had a chat with most of the teams I'm interested in from within that. I think even just this morning, I had a call with an intern from Taiwan. We had a chat, like a small chat during a speed defending session, and we got in contact. She was interested to see like how things were in Europe and working in different culture. We just set up a meeting, a 30-minute meeting that ended up being an hour. We were just very interesting people as a whole, I think, and getting that opportunity to see different perspectives and different cultures and different types of work, it's quite interesting. I'd add that working in a big team that has production code that people use, I think, in the 100,000s at least, it was incredibly useful seeing the roles that many of the different team have to play. So UX and technical writers, I think I have a newfound respect for the job that they do. I think UX people were incredibly useful. Whenever I was going to implement any front-end feature, I'll reach out, set up a quick sync with them, let them know that this is what I'm trying to do and what would be best. And then we'd have discussions on Figma, which surprisingly, they have a lot of internal tools, but for design, they kept Figma for some reason. And we had a lot of discussions on that. We had a lot of conversations, and it was quite interesting to see their insights. It was genuinely useful getting to know how they understood users and making it a better product overall. UX people had a lot of insight to give, and I was genuinely impressed by that. Outside of that, I'd say, the people, the culture around like how work is done. Everyone has all the tools they need to be productive. There's snacks, there are breaks. No one asks you any questions if you decide to stand up and leave at like 2 in the afternoon. Everyone's like, okay, bye. And no one kind of abuses that. Everyone, if they need to be somewhere, they're gone. But they end up being productive. Like they know, I think adults might be a weird term, but I feel like they're responsible for it. They respected the opportunity they were given, and they made the best use out of it. Whenever they could work, they did. Whenever they didn't. And they had an excellent work-life balance, and that was something I learned and was impressed by during my time.
Thank you so much, Biruk. So here's a question from myself, and when I ask this, I am speaking on behalf of graduate people, meaning who are going to graduate next year. So do you think, it's a question for both of you, do you think it would be worth withdrawing my graduation and maybe for trying to prolong my graduation date in order to secure an internship offer? Do you think it's worth it, or should I aim for the full-time position? In your opinion, which one do you think I should do? speaking as a fifth year member currently who is facing the dilemma of letting the internship offer go and maybe going for a full-time offer, or maybe, you know what, I might even delay my graduation for 6 months or a year also. It wouldn't matter since I'm interning at Google. I would be gaining more from it, but still keep in mind that the chances of him passing the interview are really they're still on stake. So what do you have to say about this? Do you think it's worth trying going through all of the trouble, or should he aim for the full-time position?
I think we have A2SV who did that, like who have withdrawn for like 1 year. So I think it would be a good thing to ask them if that was the best decision. But I believe that it was a good decision for them. But this whole depends on like what you want. If it was me in that position, what I would do is I'd apply for like to many companies for both, like for example, to one company full time and to one company for internships, and I'll see which one I can secure. That would be my approach, but I'm not quite sure which one you'd have to go with because that's a pretty personal question. Like that depends on how you see like withdrawals and everything. But that's my opinion.
Brooke, do you have any opinion? Maybe on contrary to what Elshadai said, or are you on board with her idea or in her opinion?
I agree that it's a very personal choice whether they want to do a gap year or not, or like withdraw in the middle. But I think personally, Mahalit would be a good person to ask. She went through a similar process, and I think she could answer from her perspective. She found it useful. For me personally, I would prefer the route of at the start, since summer internships have a very separate timeline from new grad interview timelines. You can do the internship interviews first, and then depending on the company, like if you get rejected, they usually give you like 3 months to 6 months before you can try again. And then after that gap, you can try for new grad. Before that, if you get an internship offer, then you can deliberate and say, is this internship worth extending another year in the university? I think depending on each company, you'd have to check, but it's usually possible that you can apply for an internship. If that doesn't work out, wait until you're graduated and then apply for a new grad position. That's a possibility. I think Mahalit was trying to do that, but she got an internship offer and she liked it that way. Yeah, definitely deeply a personal opinion.
Okay, thank you so much, Brooke. So here's another question from our YouTube live chat. So her name is Hirut, and she's asking, does country, origin, or having a work visa matter in getting an offer? This is a question that you guys answered in one way, indirectly or indirectly, but maybe you can give her a direct answer. She's asking, does where I'm from matter, or does even having a work visa matter in these cases?
So
that depends on your company too. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, in my opinion, that depends on the company. Like if they sponsor working visa, you can just Google that. Like there's a whole data on the internet saying like how many employees they've sponsored H1B for the US. That's the visa you'd need. So if it is a company that sponsors H1B, it means they sponsor work visa. So where you're from shouldn't matter. Like before I got the full-time offer, I've asked my company Audible if like my visa, if like my full-time offer would depend on me getting like, I'd need a work permit for sure. And if that would affect my full-time offer, and they said no, like your full-time offer would only depend on your like how productive you were this summer and how like the whole evaluation of my summer internship. So getting a work visa didn't matter at that point. But most companies, these big tech companies, they sponsor visa a lot. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay, Biruk, what are your insights on this?
Exactly what Elshadai said, with maybe the additional note that it's usually different for internships and full time. So if you're doing your research, yeah, if you're looking for internships, it's slightly different. Companies are more likely to sponsor like visas for internships in the US. It would be a J1 visa. At least for Google, I know that J1 visas they do sponsor. There are a few A2SVians that went, and same for Zurich in Switzerland for internships. But the same doesn't apply consistently when it's full time. At least Zurich is a no go if you're not an EU citizen, and usually they don't support sponsoring work visas for the US. That was the last thing I heard. I'm not so sure about the US one, but the Switzerland for sure. So I think do your research if it's an internship versus if it's full time.
Okay. So here's a question from another live chat member who's watching our YouTube video, and he's asking that he's not a software engineering student, but he's a self-learner. So is it possible for him to get a full-time or internship since he is not pursuing any kind of degree and any kind of engineering career? But like he mentioned, he's a self-learner. He's teaching himself how to code and how to approach data structure and algorithm questions. Do you think you'll have any chance or any shots at getting where you guys are at right now?
I don't think I have the full information about that. The positions I've applied to, they're mostly for computer science or software engineering students. So because I'm a software engineering student, I went for that, but I'm not sure for a self-taught programmer or something. I cannot answer that question, sorry.
What do you have to say about this? Actually, some of our members in A2SV are not currently pursuing a degree in software engineering. Some of them are electrical engineering students. I've actually had an encounter with a chemical engineering student as well. But do these things matter? Does the degree, what's written on the degree paper matter? Does GPA matter in general when it comes to getting or securing these positions? But I remember Imri once mentioned that these top tech companies, they're not looking for papers and your GPAs. They're looking for what you have in your mind, and they know that computer science can be self-taught, and they know we can get anywhere if we show consistency and dedication. So, Biruk, maybe do you have anything to say about this?
In terms of company requirement, I would say that there are people that are way more informed than I am. I think those people would be the right people to answer the question. But in the slight switch in the question where can you get to a level where you can pretty confidently go through the interviews and perform well at the job functions? I think so. I'd say yes. That you could be a self-taught learner and then perform well in the interviews and then perform well in your job. So if that's any consolation. But I cannot say for sure about applying and meeting the requirements for those applications.
All right. Thank you, Biruk. Thank you for the question, for the answer you provided. And here's another question from our community member. His name is Abil, and he's asking, what do you think about the UI UX rules in these top tier companies? Like, he's not pursuing any kind of career or any kind of track. He's not following any track when it comes to data structure and algorithm and any kind of web or mobile app development and stuff like that. So he's asking if he can make a career out of the UI UX rules in these companies. Do you think he can do that?
I'm still not quite sure about that, but there was a close friend of mine who was interning at Audible with UI UX. So yeah, these big tech companies also take interns for UI UX, and
Yes, go on. Go on.
Sorry,
Actually.
go ahead.
Okay, so my follow-up question is, what did this guy provide like as an information for him to get enrolled in such positions? He was interning as a UI UX at Audible. So what kind of criteria did he have to meet? Did he need a degree from maybe Adobe Photoshop or stuff like that, or what were his what kind of information did he have in order to be enrolled there?
I'm still not quite sure about that, but what I know is he was a CS master's student. So I'm sorry, that's all I know. I don't know the requirements for the UI UX positions or anything, but yeah.
All right, Biruk, is there anything you might want to say?
I think everyone I've come to meet in the at Google's had some sort of computer science, software engineering background. So I'd say I don't have any context on this.
All right. Okay, so another related question for this is, does it, like, the guy is asking if an information system student is eligible for the position as well, but I think you have already answered this. As long as you're consistent and have the means to do what it takes, I think it doesn't matter what's written on your degree, right, Biruk?
So information systems can pass as like a software, like engineering or computer science type of degree. So I think it would fill in the basic requirements. I don't think I'm trying to rattle my mind for anything that might cause any red flags, but I think that should be as good as any CS degree, like on paper. So I don't think an IS would hold them back in any sense.
All right, so here is another question from Sion, and she's asking, what kind of other major skills do you need apart from data structures and algorithms after you pass the interviews in order to be a favorite person inside those top tech companies? What kind of other requirements or other skills do you need? It could be mobile app development, but in your perspective, what are some of the things that a person might need apart from data structure and algorithm related stuff?
That should depend on what you're interested. For me, I was interested in web development, so both backend and frontend. And the project I was assigned was related to that. It was basically a full stack development. So I think it's working on what you're interested. And since this is going to be a job, you're going to have to work on it. And if it is not something that interests you, it's not a good thing, maybe. So I'd say something that interests you, work on that, and there are like plenty of jobs in that market for sure. Like if you're interested in mobile app development, you could be assigned to that team. Like these top tech companies have multiple teams, so you can be assigned in one of the teams that work on mobile app development and anything that you're interested on, honestly.
Biruk, what are your views on this?
I think, in big tech companies, the one I've worked in the least. Might be some echo. Can you hear me clearly? Okay, great. I think now it's much better. So personally, it's a mix. I wouldn't say it's only specific technical skills, because most of the tooling, most of the infrastructure, the things that you use, the frameworks, most of them are internal to Google. So they don't really require like specific technical skills. Moreover, I've found that it's very useful to be able to learn quickly, to be productive in a framework quickly. So being a quick learner, asking questions, the communication skills, I think, plays a huge part. Being able to coordinate between different teams, express your ideas clearly, and was one of the, I think, 5 metrics that your internship will be evaluated in the end. I'm saying this off of memory, but I think it was coding skills, problem solving, testing, communication skills, and some other metric. I think communication skills was a huge part of it. Being able to interact with the different teams around. I think for technical skills, I wouldn't put a premium on it. Being good at what you do obviously matters, and working on like what you're interested in and being good at what you do. But I've also seen people who've transferred teams within Google that don't know the framework, and it's been years since they wrote their last line of C++, and they're joining a team that works entirely in C++, and the team is okay. It's okay, no problem. You can onboard for the next 1 or 2 months. It's fine, as long as they have that general problem-solving skill. But I mean it in a very vague sense of translating a problem statement to a possible solution and then implementing that solution in the required platform or framework or technology. I think that in a vague sense is really helpful, and it's a kind of skill that translates extremely well across projects and across teams. Between that and between that and communication skills, I'd put like a heavy premium on those in particular.
All right, so here's a follow-up question for you, Biruk, from one of our A2SV group's team members. And he is asking if you are going to be participating in the ETCPC this year. I think it's an Ethiopian data structure or algorithm competition, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a question for you, Biruk. Are you going to be participating in this contest or whatever it is?
That's an excellent leading question. I think whoever asked that must have thought, okay, we should probably discuss it in this meeting. But ETCPC is part of ICPC, if you've heard of it, International Intercollegiate Programming Contest, where students from different universities compete, and there are qualifiers. And the first qualifier for us is the Ethiopian one. We went there last year. It was a ton of fun. We met people from different universities, and it was entirely organized from the people within A2SV. We went there, we competed, and it was quite fun. It's something I really want to do today, this time also, because it's basically the same as Code Forces, in a sense, the kind of questions that come through. And it was a lot of fun, like seeing other people also compete in that manner. And also, like when I went to Google, I think a lot of the interns have reached like really big peaks on those. I think I've met someone who's been a problem setter on his regionals. People have passed to ACPC, which is the one held in Egypt, which is the next step if you pass those countries. And also people who've won their regional contests. It was in Asia, so it's even more difficult in that region. And it's more fun than like anything people should be stressing about. But I think for me, I'd definitely be joining. And it would be great to see any of the other A2SVians if they're interested. The day is supposed to be September 17, 18. So that's a Saturday and a Sunday. And for people interested, I think we'll share the details in the group and how you can register. And it's just 3 people. And then you can go and solve problems together for, I think, 5 hours. And then whoever solves the most problems with the least time and the least wrong submissions wins. Pretty straightforward Code Forces type contest. And I'd definitely recommend it for anyone who's on the fence, who's considering it. It's in Adama, Astu, and it was quite fun. So to answer the question, yes, I'm planning on participating.
All right, thank you so much. And I will make sure to ask you in further details about this after this Q&A ends, Biruk. It's going to be, you're going to have to do a lot of explanations. All right, so here's the final question of today, and it's from a A2SV community member, and his name is Jonathan. And he's asking how hard do you think the interview questions are going to be for a novice person? It could be for an intermediate person or anyone who's actually, Biruk, personally speaking, I think you are blessed with the genes of being really good programmer, but when it comes to some people, how hard and how likely is their chances of passing these interview questions? And Elshadai, I would like you to answer this question as well. And maybe if you would like to say a few words to our community members and our Group 3 A2SV members who are listening to this right now, I would leave the stage to you, and please answer the final question, and let's get on with it.
Okay. So the questions, I don't think the questions will be like, it depends on your luck. Sometimes they could be asking you maybe lead code hard questions, but that's not most likely the most likely case. Mostly it's lead code medium kind of questions, which is like very common. And most companies have maybe 2 or 3 interviews, but the most common one is 2 technical questions, which are lead code medium. So how likely are you going to pass like the interview? That depends on you. It's not about the questions, it's about your like how ready you are to answer any questions you'll be asked. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know. Brooke, do you have to say anything about this?
I would second that. There's a very slight element of luck. You might get extremely hard questions. You might be lucky and get easy questions. I wouldn't call that lucky to get easy questions, but it depends on the interviewer and what they're going for. But you can expect to be asked like a medium question that can challenge your thinking, and you can be expected to answer and explain your thought process as you come along with it. I think depends entirely on you if you're ready or not. So I'd say yes, lead code medium would be something to go for, but it's sometimes, if you've seen the question, sometimes lead code medium can be hard. So it's entirely a personal take.
All right, that's really good to know, Brooke and Elshadai. I would like to thank you both of you for spending more than an hour and dedicating your time to answer some of the questions everyone has. And personally, your answers and your feedbacks and opinions were really informative. And I would like to, on behalf of everyone who have been listening and sending questions your way, I hope every question was answered, every question they have was answered. And on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank you both. And one message I would like to send everyone is, especially for our community members, if you have any kind of questions, please make sure to send them on our A2SV discussion group. We will be more than happy to give you an answer. And maybe if you want to reach out to Elshadai or Biruk, we can also arrange that as well. We will be sharing as a Telegram group link on the YouTube comment down below. And thank you so much for being with us. And Elshadai and Biruk, if there's anything else you guys might want to say before we end our session, I will leave the stage to you, starting from Elshadai and then maybe Biruk.
Okay. One thing I'd like to say, maybe stay consistent. Like, I know how frustrating it can get. First time I joined A2SV, like, first time we had a camp, I think it was the first weekend, we had a code forces contest. And I only solved 1 or 2 questions. And I was so frustrated. Like, people solved, I think, 3 or 4. And like I couldn't get past like 2 questions, and it was very frustrating. But through practice, I've come to solve like many questions per contest. So I say that comes with consistency, maybe. So stay consistent, make sure you're improving like every time. And if you stay away from problem solving for a while, make sure you bounce back. That's all I got to say.
Right. So moral of the story is stay consistent. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ish. I think even me personally could benefit a lot from that. And yes, thank you so much. Brooke, anything you want to add?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and thank you for hosting as well, Dagum. From my end, I'd say I think every little gain matters. It's definitely a long road to take. It takes a while to practice and learn and improve, but I'd definitely say it's worth it. Not just the internship, but also the experience of problem solving and then finding real life applications to use that skill is one I found very fulfilling over time. definitely stick with it, especially if you enjoy it. I think it's something that only gives back over time. And now second, Elshadai's mention of consistency. I think it's a huge factor. It really matters. And thank you for having me again.
All right, Biruk, thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna say it again. If you guys have any kind of questions, please join our A2SV community channel and our A2SV discussion group, and you can send any kind of questions you have there. And if your questions are related on how you can join A2SV and what our organization's next step are going to be, we will also be answering those in our discussion group. So make sure to send your questions on the group. And that is all I have to say. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Goodbye.
Thank you.